a Nelson store is not the sale of food. Do you agree? From everything you've heard today.
Using the definition under grocery store, no. However, I think the committee is able to use any definition that they like.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute adjournment. When we come back, let's just remind everyone this is not a court, and let's just try and keep calm. I know everyone has strong views, and I don't believe anyone's trying to manipulate the law. We're just trying to argue points and nuances in this of this law, and it is clearly not particularly well written. It's probably because it's been written by MPs. So I think that this is a helpful conversation to be having, and I'm really keen to try and mediate some answers and nuances here, because we want the best thing for this community. So we have to remember that we're trying to reduce alcohol harm. We're trying to support our Nelson businesses to thrive and survive as well. So we have different reasons to be interested in Nelson Airport in particular. And I think there are some really strong arguments for and against, and I do accept that new data has come to the police and Nelson Marlborough Health at the last minute, and Nicola, that's often the case with all good debates. Things come in at the last minute because someone has a chance to read, and likewise police have countered with this doesn't fit the act, but what about safety? So we've got lots of counter arguments coming through the course of the day. That's the purpose of us being here. So let's remember that we are all impartial. We have an open mind. We're trying to navigate our way through some quite complicated nuances, and we need you all to help us end up with the best decision. So take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, well, are we being live streamed again? Carol, I understand that there's a few more questions for you. Apologies. If you could please come back into the witness seat. Derek has some questions and Olivia and Nicola might have some questions.
My question was, in your experience with off licenses, are you aware of any conditions that relate to tastings? We were talking about that earlier on, about excluding the possibility of them or limiting them in any way. Have you come across that in your experience on any applications?
I've probably only seen tastings in bottle stores, supermarkets. There is a requirement for them to have water there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really the only.
But not in a situation that's anything like this.
I would be.
You can think of.
I would be quite alarmed to think that there might be tastings at the Nelson store. Yeah, I think. I mean shivers. That setting to have alcohol tastings when you're mixing with children and buying their magazines and toys.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Olivia or Nicola, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. No, I don't either.
Okay, thank you. So just to sum up in your mind in terms of this section 35 of the Act, alcohol would be an appropriate complement to goods of the kind sold in the shop. So I'm trying to picture this complementary gifting. So someone flies in to Nelson, let's say they're visiting someone for dinner, they might choose to buy a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates, say, to take as a gift to wherever they're going for dinner. Or likewise, they might be taking that home to a partner if they haven't seen them for a few days. Can you think of other items which, beyond food, gourmet food, which is complementary? Would you agree that things like some of those natural skincare products or a scarf and gloves would also be complementary in terms of a gifting if you've arrived in Nelson or you're returning to Nelson or you're flying somewhere and you want to take a gift at the last minute?
I think the model that's being talked about today of the Dunedin store, which is just the souvenir gift store with the alcohol given the license under 35A, is probably a good example where it's got souvenirs and wine may be a souvenir from an area.
Okay. So that's would be satisfactory in your mind?
If the store was applied under 35 and it was just souvenirs, gifting and an off license, not the convenience store, that would be a model that we would consider.
Okay, so what parts of the convenience items are you particularly concerned about? The confectionery and the food items being sold within there? Because books could be argued that they're complementary. We've heard that. Books could be argued to be complementary to wine as well.
I think it's the concept of a convenience store. It's the confectionery, the beverages, the chocolate, the earbuds. It's not, if you look at section 35, it's really that the goods should complement the alcohol, not, so it's quite a stretch to say that a lotto ticket and a cell phone completes.
Okay. Does it say that to the goods of the kind sold in the shop? Okay, all right, that's helpful, thank you.
May I just add some clarification?
Yeah.
From a health perspective, I think the key things to note about the Dunedin store that are different is that it is an entirely separate store. And so it's the complementary goods, but it's also the fact that they're sold in an environment where the appropriate procedures, systems can be put in place that suit the range of items for sale in that store. It's quite different to a convenience store. So just to make that point of clarification from health's perspective, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I do appreciate that, but it's also dominated by alcohol. the Dunedin store, whereas the intention of this is to have not have a dominance of alcohol. And I guess in my mind that does reduce alcohol related harm, which is why we're here. So I'm trying to balance that up with the Act.
I think it would be interesting to get that clarification from the applicant, just because when I looked at their photos, it seemed like it was a very large store. And so it may be that alcohol is actually not so much of a footprint. It seemed like there was a large other area on the side with souvenirs.
Okay, so, all right, thank you. Maybe we can pick that up at the end. All right, thank you so much, Carol. I'm going to move on to Nicola now. Oh, Olivia. Leon, sorry. Olivia, and then Nicola.
Would you like to swear or affirm?
Affirm, thank you.
Do you solemnly, sincerely and truthfully declare and affirm that the evidence you're about to give regarding the matters before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Olivia, if you just want to sum up or highlight any parts of your evidence that you want to share with us. If you feel you have to read it all out, that's okay as well. I'm just aware of time.
My name is Olivia Gibson. I am a sergeant in the New Zealand Police, and I currently hold the alcohol harm prevention role for the Nelson Bays Police. Part of my duties includes reporting on and inquiring into alcohol licence applications as per Section 103 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. This matter before you is an off-licence application from LS Travel Retail New Zealand Limited for an off-licence premises located within the Nelson Airport Terminal in an existing store called the Nelson Store. The applicant has applied for an off-licence under Section 17 and Section 35 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012, exception for certain complementary sales. The application was received in my office on the 22nd of November 2021. I was made aware of this application when I began this role in April 2022. I was also made aware that this was the second off-licence application submitted by LS Travel Retail New Zealand Limited for the same premises, the first being in 2018, which was subsequently withdrawn by the applicant. On behalf of the police, I've opposed the application. On reviewing the application, the applicant seeks the issue of a licence in terms of Section 17 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. Section 17 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 states the following: off licences, sale and supply of licensed premises. 1, on the premises an off licence is held for, the licensee can sell alcohol for consumption somewhere else. And number 2, while the premises an off licence is held for are open for the sale of alcohol for consumption somewhere else, the licensee can also supply alcohol free as a sample for consumption on the premises, which we've talked about, free samples. I particularly wish to draw the District Licensing Committee's attention to Section 17.2. The granting of this licence would allow the applicant to promote local producers by offering free samples of alcohol to members of the public visiting the airport. When considering the application for an off licence, I've referred to Sections 32 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012, which states the kinds of premises for which an off licence may be issued. The applicant's store is not of a kind permitted to hold an off licence under Section 32. And we've heard today the applicant accepts this. And they have raised that they'd like to be considered under Section 35. I probably don't need to go into 35. We've probably heard that enough. When considering Section 35(1)(a), the licensing authority must be satisfied that the premises are a shop, but not a shop where the principal business carried on is the sale of food, whether food of a particular kind or kinds or a range of food. And I could probably speed the process up here. I'm not massively familiar with the Act in my short time as well, so very layman. So I've taken the simple approach of using the Oxford Dictionary word for principle and their meaning, and also using the Food Act to cover the definition of food. So the Oxford Dictionary meaning of the word principle is first in rank or importance, as we've heard. And using the Food Act to provide me with a definition of food. We've also heard what that is, being anything that is used, capable of being used or represented as being for use for human consumption, whether raw, prepared or partly prepared. I reviewed the sales by category figures from November 2021, which were provided with the application. So these figures, similar to the last witness, are in reference to those, not the most updated version. I've used the same categories to define food, being confectionery, beverages and gourmet food, coming up with that 31.9%. Then the next categories listed would be books at 21.1% and magazines at 14.1%. Therefore, food, in my view, as provided by those statistics, is the principal business of the Nelson store. This does not meet the requirement of section 35(1)(a), and therefore an off licence cannot be issued. Additionally, we must consider section 35(1)(b). 1A and 1B must both be met. So if 35(1)(a) was met, which I on behalf of the police firmly believe that it's not, then the licensing committee must be satisfied that the alcohol would be an appropriate complement to goods of a kind sold or to be sold in the shop. My view of an appropriate complement is an item which, when combined with another, completes that, enhances it or emphasises it, emphasise the qualities of both of those items. And when we are considering an appropriate complement, in this case, we must be taking into account all of the products within the store, not just some. Referring again to the November 21 statistics provided, I can see no way in which alcohol completes or enhances the sale of books or confectionery, magazines, tobacco, newspapers, electronics, stationery, lotto, we've talked about. So I do not believe that the sale of alcohol is an appropriate complement to the range of products sold in the Nelson store. If the licensing authority was to determine that the principal business of the Nelson store was not food and that the sale of alcohol was an appropriate complement to goods of the kind sold, then I would be concerned the likes of a Whitcoulls or a Paper Plus store, which also sells a lot of these goods like books, magazines, lotto, stationery, gifts and souvenirs, and some travel accessories, would be encouraged to apply for an off licence. This would in turn lead to a risk of proliferation of off licence, which is contrary to the object of the Act. On the 12th of April 2022, I visited the Nelson Whitcoulls store on Trafalgar Street and was given consent by the store manager to take some photos, which you can refer to in your own time. They're attached. When comparing these photos with the ones taken on my visit to the Nelson store, my view is that the products sold in the Whitcoulls store are very similar to the products currently being sold in the Nelson store. I do not believe that the reporting agencies, the public or the district licensing committee believe alcohol should be sold from stores such as Whitcoulls or Paper Plus. In fact, it is my belief that Parliament intended sections 32 to 36 in the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act to ensure these types of stores could not sell or supply alcohol. So with that, I do not believe section 35(1)(a) or (b) have been met by the applicant. Finally, I believe section 36(c) of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 is relevant in this application. Section 36(c) states no off license for petrol stations, certain garages, dairies, convenience stores, conveyances or shops within shops. The licensing authority or licensing committee concerned must not direct that an off license should be issued for any premises if, in its opinion, they are a shop of a kind commonly thought of as a convenience store. On the 26th of May 2022, I visited the Nelson store within the Nelson Airport Terminal. I introduced myself to the Nelson manager, Monica Zaboranova, and explained the purpose for me being there and that I would be taking some photographs. A view of the counter area showed lottery tickets, scratchy tickets, ice cream, sunglasses, confectionery, whilst nearby was prepackaged food and soft drinks. This, alongside newspapers, magazines, travel accessories and books, indicate that this is a convenience store. It is a place for visitors and travellers to the airport to grab those convenient last-minute items before boarding a plane, or to entertain children on a flight, or consume within the terminal while they wait for a delayed flight, for instance. The visual appearance of the Nelson store and the full range of goods sold in the Nelson store, in my view, represents a convenience store. Referring again to the sales by category figures, in Exhibit 2, I've added the previous 2 sales by figure tables that were presented. And in fact, the gifts and souvenirs make up just 5.9% of the total sales. Further indicates this is a convenience store and not a gifts and souvenir store. Reviewing the 2 most recent year-to-date sale figures, this category has actually dropped from 10.6% to 5.9%. The application before you states that since 2018, the applicant has refreshed the store range and improved the local product selection in terms of gift and souvenir items. The sales by category figures provided to the Medical Officer Health in 2019 would not support this. Food was calculated as 27.9% of total sales in November 2018. I've just thought, should I be turning that off, talking about figures?
I think it's, as long as you're not talking about dollar amounts.
Okay.
Figures are okay.
Sorry, just thought.
Yeah.
So food was calculated as 27.9% of total sales in November 2018, 30.6% in March, and now 31.9% in this application. And that's using those bunching of those categories that I consider to be food. It is evidence that this category is actually increased in sales. The principal business on all 3 year-to-date figures is food. There is no evidence to support that the refreshed store or product range has changed the principal business. Section 36 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 prohibits the granting of an off licence to a convenience store. Whilst inquiring into this application, I identified a number of concerns from a police perspective, which I believe show a lack of commitment to the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012, and in particular the object of the Act. The application does not provide sufficient information regarding the day-to-day running of the store. Some of that certainly has been addressed, being able to speak directly with one of the applicants. The duty manager does have a duty manager certificate. The number of duty managers that they are suggesting would be a very good number for the store and the hours. They've requested to sell alcohol from 7 to 8 p.m, which are when I wrote this, the current operating hours of the store. However, they're now saying that's a 5 p.m. finish. Probably isn't too relevant too much more now, because I think we've talked through that. The duty manager part of it's probably not overly concerning for me as much as it was from the application. When I review the application alongside my visit to the store, I form the belief that the general layout of the store and the proposed location of the alcohol within the store showed a lack of consideration to security measures. I think we've already talked to that part of my evidence as well. I think it was accepted that there was probably some visual impairment between where the store person would be behind the till and where the alcohol is proposed to be. So that is certainly a concern, but the applicant did talk that they would put other measures in place in
So
terms
that
of
could be addressed.
CCTV and
Yeah.
mirrors. However, it's still something that I would have expected in the initial application to satisfy that aspect of concerns from the police, and that they'd actually thought about that when they put their application in. So in summary, however, the applicant wishes to present their store, I believe sections 32, 35 and 36 prohibit the granting of an off licence to the Nelson store.
That's a very clear summary of your evidence. So thank you for that. Nick, I'm going to let you ask questions.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Olivia. Look, Nelson Airport, Sergeant, is that within your usual domain for you to attend call-outs with your team?
It's very contentious, actually, Nick, the airport. My role substantively, I'm a Tasman sergeant, so I actually look after Richmond and Motueka. And that quarantine road is very contentious with Nelson and Tasman. So me sitting here now would say no. I, as a Tasman sergeant, don't look after Nelson, and the Nelson police attend jobs if required at the Nelson store.
Okay, well, understandably, a follow-up from me. Is the Nelson Airport a hotspot for crime and disorder?
No.
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 Okay. Now, in your evidence today, you don't produce any data from the National Intelligence application?
No, I don't.
No calls for service?
There's calls to service to the airport, but it's generally for emergency planes.
For planes. So just so I understand that it's not for calls for service for disorder at the Wayfarers Cafe?
Look, I can only speak personally. I've never attended there, but I can't say categorically that over the number of years that the terminal's been open that we haven't attended.
During your inquiries, you would have searched your National Intelligence application for the address of the Nelson store, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and nothing's come up. Good. And equally, no calls for service to the McCashin's bar, also in the terminal?
I'm trying to think which one that is.
It's never
I
open.
don't think it's open anymore.
Oh,
The McCashin's bar?
We don't know. Never seen it open.
is that the one
It's the
before you
one.
go up the stairs to the?
No, that's
South end of the main.
the corridor.
Right by the stairs up to the corridor.
But it's downstairs. It's just always just got water.
Yes,
As far
I've
as
never
I
seen
can
it
tell, the
open.
McCashin's bar only serves water, which is quite. Yeah, there's no star.
Look, perhaps that's something the inspector might be able to clarify. Heads up. Nicola, might be a question for you coming up. Okay. Well, then just so I understand, Olivia, that the focus of your objection is section 35, isn't it? You say that this applicant cannot meet the requirements in section 35 on any way you cut the cloth for this application, correct?
And 36.
And 36. So you're
36 overrides 35. So my inquiries, both 35 and 36 in my view, are not met.
okay. Well, look, let me just unpack this, and I'll do it at pace. So just tell me to slow down if you need, okay?
Okay.
Now, your words as you open with that, you're not massively familiar with the Act in your short time in your role. Those are your words.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. And previous to you had Carol McIntosh speak. There's 14 years familiarity with the Act. That's correct, isn't it? And look, if I put it to you from Carol, that there is a way that section 35(1)A could be satisfied. Would you disagree with Carol?
Oh, I'm not going to say that. I think it's become quite clear today, as Alex pointed out that the food or whatever category you like to bunch them, how it can, we can all determine it in different ways, I believe.
Yes, and you say that you can determine it by using the Food Act. Now, from what you've heard today, that's wrong, isn't it? It's the wrong way to approach it.
No, I don't think so. It's just something it's something to consider. For me, coming into a role where it's new,
Yes,
that's I'm using something that's something that can help me, and
Yes.
that's what the licensing committee can also use.
Okay, but look, just help me understand this, Olivia. In your role, you are not unsupported in the alcohol harm reduction portfolio, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so let's take this in stages. You'd accept from me that the New Zealand Police have an operating budget of more than $2 billion a year. Would you accept that from me, that the New Zealand Police receive that operating?
No, I can't.
You can't.
I know that this role nationally is very undervalued. There's certainly in the major areas, your Aucklands and your Wellingtons, where there's a huge number of off-licensed, on-licensed club, they have teams. A lot of places within the country, this role is a portfolio or it's an add-on to something else.
Okay.
This role for me is only part of what I do.
Okay, a part of what you do. And look, I understand it. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that there are other alcohol harm reduction officers nationally, aren't there?
Yes.
And in taking on this role, you will have been trained in that role, correct?
No.
At all?
No,
You've
we
received
have
no training.
we have some advocacy training coming up, Nick.
No, I just mean specifically in terms of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, you've been trained on the Act.
No. When I picked this role up in mid-April, it was really, I had a little bit of knowledge from working on the street doing hotel visits and
Okay.
compliance checks, but no. And I've been to a conference where Alistair Sheriff spoke, and he makes it very clear that this Act is complicated and
Okay.
it takes a very long time
Yes.
to tease it out and understand it.
Okay. Well, so you've referred to Alistair Sheriff. Now, he's one of the authors of the Sale of Alcohol text in New Zealand.
Yes, of the handbook. Is that what you mean?
Well, yes, he does write that handbook.
Yes.
He also publishes Brooker's or Westlaw Sale of Alcohol text.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
You're not familiar with it? You haven't referred to that at all?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. And plainly, you haven't instructed, New Zealand Police haven't instructed Alistair Sheriff in relation to this matter, have they? Because he'd be here. No. So really, what you've got here, this is your own thinking, correct?
It's my belief of reading, my interpretation of the Act. Yeah.
So it's because at paragraph 31 of your brief and at page 116, you do use those words. You say, it is my belief, Parliament included.
Yeah, so that is my belief. When I read it, and I have since researched as well,
Yes. Well, look,
and proliferation of off-licence and trying to understand
okay.
convenience stores, dairies, and in my short time trying to just get my head around
Okay.
that's where my belief has come from.
So it hasn't come from, say, talking to your New Zealand Police and in-house legal team?
Oh, no.
No, okay. Okay.
I think it's quite safe to say, Nick, that we're a small provincial town and this
yes.
happens very rarely. So
Yes.
for the fact that the police and Nelson Marlborough Health and the Inspector of Alcohol have opposed this application is saying something, because normally there is support for applications if they're done well. So I think we need to be mindful of that in the Nelson Marlborough Health and Police's mind, there is a failing to meet the Act. Now, you have given some good evidence as to why it does meet Section 35. I'm yet to hear evidence as to how, and I'm curious, Olivia, to me, Section 36 is perhaps the one you would be focusing in on now, having heard today's questions. Are you of the mind that you could look at food as do you think food is still the primary?
I just think we have to be careful with 35 because you have to be satisfied on 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
And I'm as clear as I am that the Nelson store does not satisfy 36 because I believe it's a convenience store. I also believe that the goods of a kind that they sell in stock are not complementary to alcohol.
So so I think we'll hone in on those 2 points. So those would be your 2 points whereby it does not meet the criteria of the Act. And therefore you did not need to seek legal counsel or go nationally in terms of seeking more
In terms of that,
information.
then yes.
So it's not that it's a hot spot in terms of crime prevention or that's never come up in my council meetings that it's a hot spot. So
No.
but I think that you've primarily looked at this in terms of whether it meets the criteria of the Act.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then just to close that issue out around section 35(1)(a), do you still maintain that the principal business of this store is the sale of food products?
So do you want to refer to the latest stats then that were?
Yeah, look, I'm just asking you, after everything you've heard today, you're still going to maintain that the principal business of the Nelson store is the sale of food?
Like I said, I think however we categorise that, in my mind, I've categorised food as I have, so yes.
So that's you'll maintain that. Okay. And if I put it to you that you're wrong on that, you would disagree with me.
Yeah, it's your opinion. I would disagree. Yeah.
Well, then let's talk about what's complementary then. Again, from your answer, I take it that when you say at 24, your view of an appropriate complement is an item which, when combined with another item, completes the items or will enhance or emphasise the qualities of both items. You've just, that's your own thinking. Nowhere else does that appear.
That was my thinking. I spoke also with my predecessor, I suppose, in the role, who had the same terms in terms of what an appropriate complement was, and I agree that's what I believe an appropriate complement is, something that enhances the other.
And so when you say in 25, we must ensure we consider all of the products being sold in the store, not just some. Did you take that from section 35?
Did I?
Yes. Is that the wording that you've pulled from section 35?
No.
Okay.
Again, me just going into the store, inquiring into the application, you must look at everything within that store. I, coming into it, quite a few months in, I asked the same question of the licensing inspector around, have we discussed a partition and a separate till to separate? Because in my mind that it was just quite clear, it was clearly a convenience store. It was clearly all the items needed to be considered, not just some of them.
And that suggestion, though, that would be unlawful, wouldn't it?
Because then you'd have a shop within a shop.
Yes, well, maybe, again, not knowing the Act fully, but for me it needed to be separate. It needed to be separate so we can control the alcohol.
Can I just pause you on that, right? Because I know that Carol has expressed her view, her considered view was that this is an ill-conceived application. She used the word circumvent. Do you know what circumvent means? It means to try and get around something in a surreptitious way. Now, what I'm saying to you is this is a licensee who's invested a lot of time and money. They've taken the time to familiarise themselves with the Act. And look, with no disrespect to you, you're candidly telling us that you really haven't done much more than your own thinking on this.
No, I can say that I have certainly under 35, 36.
Okay.
Have certainly lived and breathed it for the last...
Since April this year.
Amongst other, yes.
I think I'm going to interrupt, and because I do feel like we're rehashing a little bit. Nick, I appreciate that we don't that Olivia is not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, but this is not a court, and people are doing their best to interpret the law. When I read the law, it is very clear that under 35 is what you've applied for. Alcohol would be an appropriate complement to goods of the kind sold or to be sold in the shop. So the word all is not in there. That's ambiguous, but it does imply, it almost implies that all goods in the shop must complement alcohol. When I read that, that's my interpretation of it. Now, my daughter is a third-year law student, so I did ring her last night because I was curious if we can say people are wrong and right, and it turns out in legal language you can. I don't believe it's particularly constructive to say wrong or right at this hearing, because that just gets people's backs up a little bit. I think the way you've interpreted it is probably right in your mind, and the way Olivia has interpreted it is probably right in her mind. So I think we are all doing our best to interpret the law, and Olivia could quite easily counter and say the way you're interpreting it is wrong, and I am very curious how lawyers get away with that, but there you go. So we will just stick to different interpretations, different nuances, different understandings. I appreciate that as the legal counsel for the applicant, you will have studied the entire Act in far more detail, but I also have to, as a committee, we have to trust Nelson Marlborough Health and the police and our alcohol inspector that they are representing the law as they understand it to be, and that is their area of expertise too. So on that note, in my mind, there's some ambiguity in how we interpret Section 35. Section 36 is a little bit clearer, and as you've pointed out, and that came up earlier in the morning, you can't have a shop within a shop because they're situated wholly or partially within a shop, and it doesn't actually say that that's a separate sublease. So I apologise, I had not read that part. So we cannot have a shop within a shop, quite clearly under Section 36 of the Act. Likewise, under Section 36 of the Act, it is very clear, 36C, they are a shop of the kind commonly thought of as a convenience store. Now, over and over, you have argued it is not a convenience store, but the agencies have argued it is a convenience store. It's our role to determine that, okay? And I think that's, as we're nearing the end of the day, that will be a big part of our determination as how we interpret the word convenience. And you have fortunately highlighted in your evidence that there is no definition of a convenience store within the Act. So that is the part where we are going to have to think carefully about how we interpret a convenience store at an airport versus a convenience store in town. I think as well, Olivia has highlighted that whether you determine food as your number one item for sale, or whether you determine books and stationery, which you could also argue is your number one item for sale, would WITCLs then be able to apply for off licence, and are we setting a precedent? So that's a helpful thing to have highlighted, that if in fact books and stationery and newspapers is your number one item for sale, are we setting a precedent that WITCLs could then apply for a licence? So there's quite a lot of issues to go through, because in granting this, we set a precedence for other stores, and I think that it is fair that our local police, health and alcohol inspector raise that as concerns. It would not be here if their concerns were not serious, because this does not happen very often. So on that note, if you've got any more questions, I'm aware it's 4:10. You probably do have some more questions.
I do, Kate,
and
yes.
I will take another break at 4:30. So hopefully we will have finished by then with Olivia, and then we'll just have Nicola to go. Are we all able to stay until 6 p.m? Okay, I have to leave at 6 p.m. So ideally we'll be finishing off by 10 to 6 at the latest.
It's fine. Kate,
Okay.
just with, I just wanted to raise for Nikki, she has a flight at 5:10, but has given instructions to continue and also Anne's still present, but there's no disrespect to the committee if Nikki has to step out shortly, just to meet that.
It's okay, Nikki, we understand.
Thank you.
Fortunately, Nelson Airport is not that far away.
That's right. Okay. Well, look, picking up on what Kate's identified, it's correct, isn't it, that there is no definition of a convenience store. And in fact, section 36 of the Act refers to commonly thought of as a convenience store. So in your inquiries, you haven't asked anyone about their thoughts about a convenience store, have you?
Just what, general people?
Correct. You don't call any witnesses to give
Oh,
views?
no.
I understand. Okay.
No.
Well, look, why don't we then just drill down into the convenience store aspect, please, just so I can put to you our views. Paragraph 37 of your brief, and this is 117 of the bundle. You say the visual appearance of the Nelson store and the full range of goods sold in the Nelson store, in my view, represents a convenience store. Now, you'd accept from me, wouldn't you, that the store across the road, night and day, out and out convenience store, correct?
Oh,
Across the road beside the state cinema.
yes. I suppose it's a dairy that offers, I think it does offer hot food, and yes.
Okay. Well, look, I've got
Might be more dairy.
photos. I've got some photos, and look, let's just, if I may, Olivia, just draw your attention to those, please. I've got a stack of these for you, if you like. So they're all the same. There's one in each. Thank you. Now, I'll work through these reasonably quickly, Kate, just given your indication about the matters you'd like to me to address.
I was just clarifying with Kate that you referred to Alistair Sheriff, and there is an explanation of convenience in the book.
In the sale of alcohol
Yes.
text.
Yes. So there is helpful guidance around what a convenience store is that we will have the opportunity to take account of. So, and it's quite clear, and there's some very good cases that relate specifically to that.
Certainly. Well, I'm happy to address those in submission.
Can I just clarify, you've read that page?
Of the Brookers, I haven't referred to it specifically in my submissions.
I'm going to ask for a copy of that to be taken and to be tabled. Mark, if we could get a copy of that. Yeah, so convenience store is not defined in the Act, so quite clearly, but it says, but there is some, I'm just going to summarise it briefly so everyone knows what I have read. By inference, it will not be a supermarket or a grocery store as defined in section 32 and 33. In practice, it will probably be something more than a dairy, but less than a grocery store. There was much litigation under the 1989 Act involving convenience stores. Initially, they were granted a grocery store style off licence. In that way, Caltex, Star Marts, Victoria, Night and Day stores and fixed stores, all described as convenience stores, obtained off licences. However, over time, the authority changed its view and came to the conclusion that convenience stores were not in fact grocery stores. As a result, the authority ceased to renew or grant new licences for convenience stores. So from Gladding, relevant considerations include the type of store, size, layout, whether it has a kitchen, whether it sells gifts, souvenirs, the types of goods sold, jewellery, stationery, clothing. The test is not whether the store and what it sells is convenient, and the totality of the operation is to be evaluated, not just the characteristics common to a dairy or convenience store. Fuel, okay. Okay, so in Gladding versus Glenorchy, the authority held the business was a convenience store and confirmed the district licensing committee decision to refuse an off license. So that comes up in your evidence. It's referred to in someone's evidence. I did read that case.
Council's.
And council's evidence.
In
In your submission, yes. So I think that that's quite helpful. We'll get that a photocopy of that, please, if everyone.
That may be unnecessary, and to Laurie, in the submissions that I have here, I have the full text of that case referred to, the Gladding one, at paragraph 73, and as it happens, that was exactly the paragraph I was about to explore with this.
Oh, there you go.
So that's at page 15 of my submissions.
Okay.
To work through those helpful factors. I'm just conscious that for this committee and its role, section 36 requires you
we will get a copy of that as well, because this is your evidence, whereas that's impartial evidence, which is as Laurie has identified it, it's important that we have a copy of that as well. So if you carry on now, Nick,
sorry.
and apologies, sometimes I can see people because I don't have my glass backwards and forwards with the glasses.
So you're right to raise this, Kate. I mean, section 36 directs that you need to form an opinion about whether the shop is of a kind commonly thought of as a convenience store. So part of the reason I would like to test in evidence with this Sergeant exactly these factors. So I've just given you a document there, Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
So we spoke briefly about the night and day Nelson City. So on the first page there, these are a series of 5 images. So on page 1, you'll see that the Nelson City food store, cafe, milk bar. It's correct that the Nelson store doesn't describe itself as a food store in its advertising on front of its store.
But these are dairies.
Yeah.
So in New Zealand, we would argue that these are dairies.
Respectfully, Kate, they're not dairies. I would say there is a dairy pictured on page 4. You might say. What I'm just needing to confirm, though, is these labels are actually important to your opinion forming, in my respectful view. Food store, it's called the Nelson store, isn't it? Not the Nelson food store, Olivia?
Yes, it is, but inside they have snack food, big sign snack food. They categorise what's within their store.
Okay.
But outside, yes, it's...
Is it called the Nelson Cafe?
No, it's called the Nelson store.
And it doesn't describe itself as a milk bar?
I don't think it sells milk.
It's called the Nelson store.
I'm genuinely not trying to be facetious with my questions, Olivia, and I'd be grateful if the same in answer. So over the page then is another store. You'd recognise that store?
No. If you told me maybe whereabouts it might be, then yes.
I put it to you, it was the Stoke Night and Day store.
Main Road Stoke.
On Maid Road. So will you accept that?
That's not her. That's not her.
Well, it is actually.
Oh, is it?
It is actually.
Nelson Police.
Okay. Well, look, no, it doesn't look familiar, but okay, I'll agree that it's in Stoke.
So you accept as the Nelson Stoke Night and Day.
Yeah.
You'll see that there are some hours there, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And it says it sells groceries,
Yes.
ice cream,
Yes.
takeaways,
Yes.
snack foods,
Yes.
fish and chips.
Yes.
The Nelson store doesn't sell fish and chips.
No.
It doesn't have its own kitchen either, does it?
I don't personally know that offhand. I think I've heard or read maybe in your submissions that you stated it didn't, but I don't know that for sure.
But you contend it does sell snack foods and that's accepted?
Yes. Are you talking the Nelson store?
Yes.
Yep.
And ice cream is sold here?
Yes.
Okay. And then just, I won't take you over the page to page 3. I'll take you to page 4, please. Do you recognise that store?
I do.
Yes, that's the Black Cat convenience store
Yes.
in Annesbrook, isn't it?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
they use the words convenience store. If you can
Yes,
see that.
yes, they
picture.
do. Yes, above the door.
Yes, okay. And it's described as an on-the-spot store.
Yes. Yep. Yes, it is.
And the Nelson store is not an on-the-spot store.
No, well, no.
Okay, and then lastly, the 5th page in your patch, then you'll recognise this store.
Well, I should, shouldn't I? Richmond. Yes, I do.
And
Yes, I do.
Yes, and you'll see that's open from 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. there.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, look, let's just turn to Gladding, please, if I may. And you may have a copy of these submissions in front of you, and if you don't, I can arrange for a copy for you.
I have a copy.
So I'm going to take you to page 15 of the submissions. This is the Gladding case, which Laurie and Kate have just referred to.
Page 15, sorry, was that?
Yes, page 15,
Yep.
if you can.
Yes.
So at paragraph 73, I just want to direct you to the final line. The premises need to be considered in their totality, and in each case, it is a matter of judgment and degree.
Sorry, Nick. I'm on.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Page 15,
Yes.
there's a second to last paragraph at the bottom.
Not page 15 of the agenda, page 15 of Nick's submission.
Beg your pardon.
Yes, I have that.
Given that all of this information has been submitted by Nick as a submission, rather than being presented as evidence, how are we able to examine him on the detail of this and question him on it? Because it just seems to me, I don't fully understand the process when he submitted it, how we can in turn query the conclusions that he's reaching and then attempt to inform the role.
Thanks, Alexandra. That's a very good point. I'm going to adjourn for a couple of minutes and ask Michelle, because hopefully Michelle, who sits in Switzerland, can answer that question for me.
Kate, I could also be heard on that if I might.
Okay, but I'll talk to Michelle first and then we'll hear back from you, Nick. And whilst I'm talking to Michelle, I'm going to adjourn for 3 minutes. Whilst I'm talking to Michelle, I do have a question for you, Nick. In the law 36, it says no off licenses for petrol stations, certain garages. I'm not sure why it says certain garages, dairies, convenience stores. Now, I don't know why they've written dairies and convenience stores, because in my mind, every image you have shown is what I would call a dairy, but maybe the new word for it is a convenience store. I'm presuming they have itemised, I'm not sure what a conveyance is to be honest.
Party bus.
Oh, party bus. Okay, cool. So that the law is quite clear that dairies and convenience stores and I would still classify all those photos you've shown us as a dairy, not as a convenience store, even though some of them say convenience stores. So I'm assuming that the law intended to go further than just dairies. Otherwise, it would have written dairies, or maybe it was capturing convenience stores, because some dairies now call themselves convenience stores. So it is still open to our interpretation of what a convenience store is. And you've shown a certain model of a convenience store, but I would have thought a convenience store in Hong Kong or Singapore airport was quite different to our local dairy. So I just think you need to reflect on this as an airport, not a high street or a suburb. So we need to be mindful of the context of it being an airport. It's not a shopping mall. It's not a high street. It's not a suburb. It's an airport location. So what in our mind is convenient in a convenience store if you were in an airport? So I'll let you ponder that while I talk to Michelle quickly about the question. Alex. brief conversation with Michelle and the opportunity for the police, the alcohol inspector and Nelson Marlborough Health to ask questions around this tabled document was during your cross-examination of Nick's witnesses, I understand. So that opportunity has now passed. Nick, is that what you were going to say?
Yes.
Respectfully, Kate, as I think has been alluded to by Olivia, we're not lawyers around this. We all have busy day jobs that we've sacrificed a lot of time from to commit to this hearing because of obviously the concerns which we've expressed so far. And certainly, you know, my naivety, I'm a doctor of the procedure. I had no awareness that that was the process. I certainly had no awareness, in fact, that there was going to be a lawyer's submission because my information from the Secretary, Michelle, was that all documents were provided last Tuesday. I received no documents until Nick submitted this on Friday night. So from a process procedure, I feel blindsided and I don't feel that I have had a fair opportunity either to absorb Nick's submission or to respond to it, or in fact to seek legal counsel myself, which would be a whole nother question given the extremely strained health resources we have across our community and actually applying to get the kind of resource we would need to respond to this. So I just want to flag those concerns because I really do think that it's not giving us a fair opportunity when apparently our sole opportunity has passed and when in fact we didn't even have, you know, I don't work on Fridays. I think it came in Friday night, you know, and I've had 8 hours of work time when I had multiple other demands on my time to supposedly read through and address this.
That's very helpful. I've got the gist. So I think that there's a concern about lack of fairness of process because your submissions come so late in the day, Nick, that some of the agencies are feeling that they needed an opportunity for their legal counsel to look at your advice or at least to be able to ask questions of that, and they didn't know that had to be done this morning. I'm going to have a think about that and whether we come back on Thursday to give the police and the Nelson Marlborough Health an opportunity to formulate their questions around your submission, as you have not been a witness, and I might have to get some more advice from Michelle. But I think it's fair to say that because your submission arrived on Friday night, the feeling of being blindsided is fair, and we need to support the agencies to have an opportunity to really think about your submission as well, because you've brought a whole lot more legal evidence up. So you've lifted the weighting a little bit of this case. And whilst you've said, you know, the applicant has spent considerable time investing in a legal counsel, the agencies didn't know that until Friday. So they only had the application as it stood last Tuesday. Would you concur with that?
I can understand, and hearing that it's the first time I've had that expressed. I didn't understand that there was a specific direction around filing submissions. There was certainly a direction to file our evidence by that time, and this would be ordinarily the sort of matters that I would speak to. I think you're right to raise the point also that, look, I'm not here as a witness. I'm here to assist and represent the applicant. So to the extent that there was ever an opportunity to cross-examine me, well, that just simply doesn't and cannot exist, because I am not giving any evidence. I'm there with the twin roles really of representing my client to put their case and to test their evidence, and that is the whole basis for why I'm asking questions of those persons who are giving evidence. So certainly I think there's an opportunity for all parties to give submissions in the same way that I would give submissions to this committee. So certainly I'm intending with the committee's approval to examine these factors that are relevant to the legal test that you'll have to apply. Is it a convenience store, commonly thought of as a convenience store? There's the whole purpose of my questions about asking what photos look and feel, because this is what the licensing authority, which you're bound by, has set out.
But you haven't provided any photos of the relay stores in all of the regional airports around the country, and you have admitted that they are convenience stores. So I think that, to be fair, we need to see some photos of what they look like and compare them to the Nelson store. Because I did hear that very clearly this morning, that you felt that the relay stores were convenience stores.
Well, that was in the evidence from Nikki, who was speaking about the particular offering. So that's not my evidence, so to speak, but the evidence for the applicant. I didn't hear, for example, that it was an absolute outright concession, but I could review my notes as to what that is. But there's definitely a qualitative, the evidence shows, in my view, qualitative difference between what the Nelson store is and will be
compared to
and a relay offering. So I'm not proposing to produce pictures of a relay store, for example. That's not part of our key case to do that.
Can I just jump in there? I have actually got some photos of the Wellington relay store.
Okay.
When I was last in Wellington, I just took some photos. So I do have those. I haven't produced them in evidence because it wasn't part of, but I do have some, if that can assist.
Well, I think because Nick's presented photos of night and days around Nelson, I think it would be helpful to get photos of convenience stores around the country in our regional airports. I heard very clearly that relay stores are regarded even by the applicant as convenience stores, and I think that to me they are more similar than night and days in our suburbs. So I would be looking to see I don't even know what a relay store is, sorry. So I'm sure I've seen them lots of times as I've gone around the country, but it's not strong in my head. I could probably look it up on my phone, but that would be the first thing I would be looking at, is what does a relay store look like in our regional airports, because that's the closest I've got in my mind of what a convenience store looks and feels like within an airport.
Can I just make a comment, Alexandra, in relation to the comment that you've made, and based on my experience of sitting on a number of hearings? I think it's important that the committee, I understand exactly where Nick comes from as someone supporting the applicant. And so you place weight on different things that come before the committee. And for me personally, the greatest weight I place is on the questions he's asking of the agencies and cross-examine on their report. And so I certainly take on board what you're saying, but I want to give you some assurance that the importance is those that are giving evidence that are on oath. And that's where the main information comes from.
Thank you for that reassurance, Laurie. I guess my concern is when the questions are being framed with the submission, which we haven't had the opportunity to test in any other way, that's really what drives my concern. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. I think we'll carry on. Nick, have you got any more questions for Olivia?
Just around the section 36 aspects were what I wanted to work through, because, and the reason I'm testing this, Kate, is because of the conclusions that are being drawn, and understandably my case is that it's not a convenience store, whereas Olivia is saying it is. So that's why I want to test what Olivia is saying.
I still haven't found exactly where you are either.
Sure.
So
okay, I've clarified that. So up the top right of the submissions, you have those there. At the very front of it says submissions in support of application.
Page 1 to 72.
Yes. So I apologise. I was looking at up the top right. It says page 33 of 72.
33. Right.
Great. (33 of 72).
Oh.
So it has a 15 at the top, and you're going to, and we've got paragraphs 69, 70, 71, 72, 73. Is that correct, Nick? Are we all on the right page?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this decision at all, Sergeant, or is this the first time you've seen it?
Yes, this is the first time I've seen it.
That's okay. If that's the case, I just wanted to help then at the start, the very start, this is back at page 19. The licensing authority explains what this is.
Sorry, 19, so you're talking
You go back to page 19 of 72. You see up the top there, there's a person's name, Nicolette Winona Gladding.
Yes.
So my understanding, she appeals a decision from the District Licensing Committee at Queenstown Lakes, where they granted a new off licence to Mrs. Woolley's General Store. So Mrs. Gladding is challenging that decision by appeal to the licensing authority.
Okay.
Okay, well, look, let's work through then back to page 33 of 72. And at paragraph 72 there, there are a number of factors that are set out by a gentleman, Mr. Cunliffe. And this is the authority writing. So that's 72. The authority is also satisfied that the premises are not of a shop of the kind that is commonly thought of as a convenience store, such that the issue of the licence is prohibited by section 36. As Mr. Cunliffe rightly noted in considering the application of section 36, the DLC considered the type of store. So what I'm going to do now, Olivia, is just take these factors step by step and get your comment on them, please. The type of store, the applicant's case is that this is a retail and travel store. Do you accept that?
Just so so I understand what you're asking of me.
Yes. So
because I haven't had a
pardon.
chance to read the many pages of this.
And I'm not trying to trick you with these. These are just the section 36 factors which Laurie has referred to in the commentary. And I just want to go through each of those to get your comment in relation to the Nelson store. So
is that different to the single document that Laurie referred to?
I expect it will be in there, but I'd rather just focus on what the Alcohol Regulatory Licensing Authority said.
Can I just clarify, this is the decision of the authority,
Correct.
Not your words?
No, these are not my words.
So these are the decisions of the authority. So there's been an appeal
Correct.
By Gladding
Yes.
over a decision made by the DLC.
Yes.
And the authority has upheld the decision of the DLC.
Correct. Yes.
So
in
they
granting the off licence.
Yeah, so the authority have concluded that the Glenorchy Marketplace is not a convenience store, that it is
Correct.
a general store,
Yes.
and therefore it does not fit the criteria of section 36.
Yes, it's not prohibited.
It's not prohibited under section 36, and it fits the criteria of section 35 because it's not selling primarily food, it's selling a whole lot of other things as well, because it's a general store.
And I need to be candid about that. This is a section 30.
Oh, it's a section 34. Yeah, apologies.
It was a general store under section 34. Slightly different test.
Yeah, okay.
But the legal framework I'm proposing that you adopt is you can take the elements that the authority set out here when
in
you're
terms of
considering
section 30, in
36.
terms of section
Exactly.
36.
It's a good framework for you to test against the evidence you've heard today. And that's what I need the Sergeant to comment on. So I'm putting to you, Sergeant, the case for the applicant is that it's a retail and travel store. That's the type of store. Do you accept that?
No.
Okay. When you consider its size of 143 square metres, would you say that is small?
I can't I'm not sure what you're comparing that to.
Okay, that's fine. When you think about the layout of the store, you'll be familiar that approximately a third of the store is dedicated to gift products.
No, that's what the applicant said, but I think it's also been accepted by the applicant that they have muddied and put in some snack foods and items within that third of the store as well. So
okay, and you will have heard the evidence from Nikki Page and also Anne Steer that it will be re-merchandised if the licence is granted to remove those products you're referring to that you say are muddied.
No, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that they will remove them.
No, I
But they
think
would
they
have
said they
less.
wouldn't.
That will remove them from that part of the store, from that third of the store.
Well, then we end up with a shop within a shop. So what I've heard is that a significant part of the Nelson store will still be similar to the Relay store, which is a convenience store. So that's what I am trying to be quite pithy in terms of my understanding, because obviously the three of us have to get very clear on what we understand. Whereas Mrs. Woolley's store is in Glenorchy for a start. So it's not in an airport. It's a very different location. It's in the middle of nowhere. So I think that's one of the arguments. So it has a kitchen as well, it has its own kitchen.
Kate, I'm so sorry to have to interrupt you, because I hear exactly what you're saying. In my respectful view, just heading on down this path where you're giving your view about these matters.
No, I'm seeking you to prove me wrong.
Well, no, but it just, unfortunately, it's not allowing me to conduct a fair cross-examination.
Okay, all right, I apologise. I'll let you carry on. I'm just aware that I don't feel like Olivia has had a chance to look at this case, and I'm not sure it's a fair cross-examination for you to bring in your submission, which you supplied on Friday night, to use to cross-examine her. I think you should really be cross-examining her over her evidence and asking her questions about her words, not your words, because you've provided this, she hasn't. So you're trying to ask her questions about your evidence. And I don't think that that's fair. So that's why I've interrupted, because I'm sitting here trying to read it quickly, and I can see Olivia's getting quite flustered because she hasn't had a chance to think about your submission. It isn't your words, but it's the authority's words. But her evidence wasn't on the basis of that. So your cross-examination needs to be about her evidence, not about your own. Would you concur?
No, I respectfully, I wouldn't, Kate. And the reason for that is that at paragraph 36 through to 38 of Olivia's brief, she speaks in some detail about her view of the components of the store, in my view, and that's what I'm wanting to explore with her. So she describes what's sold there, where she, at 36, for example, this is page 117 of the agenda bundle.
Okay, so then I suggest you reframe your question and say, in paragraph 36 of your evidence, you suggest that a convenience store sells lottery tickets, scratchy tickets, ice creams, sunglasses, and convenience. So I suggest you frame your question around paragraph 36, and then you compare that. If you need to compare it, you can compare it to Mrs. Woolley's store, which I presume sells all of these items as well. That would be a better way for you to frame your question. So you're looking at her points and comparing them to your points, because at the moment you're targeting in on your points and asking her if she agrees with them, but you're trying to make a point about her comments.
Do you mind if I just take a moment to reflect on that, Kate? Because I feel like we're approaching this same issue in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I think we'll take a 5-minute adjournment, and I should have been a judge, shouldn't I? So I'll just be very spend a few minutes reading his.
Oh, really? Okay.
His submission that I will. Him, and then we're going to come back, and I'm just going to talk to Michelle and find. I think we're going to have to come back on Thursday. I'm not going to come back tomorrow because I have other plans for tomorrow, but we'll probably have to come back on Thursday, and I just need to talk to Michelle about that. Okay, well, we might have to come back. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to Nick, the cross-examination of Olivia, and I'm sure you're going to reframe your questions slightly.
Well, actually, even better, Kate, I'd propose to deal with those matters with the inspector, in fact, given where I've got to with Olivia.
She's like,
That's right. So I'm actually content to, those were my questions
I've finished.
for Olivia. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. So you have finished with your questioning of Olivia. Does Nicola or Alexandra have any questions for Olivia? Yes.
Thanks, Olivia. I just wanted to draw your attention to these photographs that Nick has helpfully shared of the various convenience stores around town. Just going to section 2, or page 2, sorry. On the exterior of the door on either side, does it appear to you that there are posters of magazines for sale within the store?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and just moving to page 3, does it appear to you that there is lotto available within the store that's advertised?
Yes.
Okay, and just moving again to page 4, does it appear that there is an advertisement on the left which would, and forgive me, but I'm assuming that to the left of the door, these are again magazines that are for sale. Is that correct? Would that be the posters down at the?
Yeah, I think, well, so it's not great, but I think the first one may say the press on the press, so it might be where newspapers are kept, but the one on the left looks like a magazine.
So presumably
advertisement.
Newspapers, magazines, stuff. And again, would that be a lotto advertisement that we would see at the top of the photo?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And again, going to page 5, would it appear to you that there are posters advertising magazines and lotto advertised on the exterior of the convenience store?
Yes.
Okay, and am I correct in saying that when you visited the Nelson store, both lotto and magazines were 2 of the offerings that the Nelson store had?
Yes, they were.
Sure. And I'm just looking at the photos that Nick has provided. Has he provided you with an inventory of the items that are for sale within the night and day stores with which to compare to the Nelson store?
No, I just have the 5 photos.
Just the photos.
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that you're not really accurately able to judge whether the items for sale generally within the stores that Nick is suggesting are representative of convenience stores are similar or dissimilar to what's available in the Nelson store?
No, I can't make a good appreciation of that.
Sure, thank you. And I guess I just wanted to come back to your understanding, and you've obviously shared with us that you're a lay person, coming into this, but that you've done a lot of reading, and certainly my experience interacting with you is that you've really tried to educate and inform yourself as much as possible in this. Based on your understanding of the Act and what you've read, is there any criteria under section 32 through 36 by which this applicant could go ahead and the licence could be issued?
No.
That's my question. Thank you.
thanks, Alexandra. Derek has 2 questions.
So can I just take you back to your point 10 on page 114 in there, where you drew to our attention that they would be able to offer free samples of alcohol. So I just wonder, as the police sergeant and responsible for the liquor licence, do you have any concerns about the issuing of free samples in this situation?
Yes. It's for me, it's not a controlled area. Having free alcohol available for visitors, for children to be around, and if it's in the store, outside the store, it's very visible. It will create antisocial behaviour potentially and more calls to service from the police.
Okay. So do you have any other thing that would follow on from that? Would you, if we get to that point of granting it, would you like to see a condition to excluding this or limiting this in some way, or any
I would like
thoughts
to
on
see it
that at all?
excluded. I don't think it needs to be as part of the licence if it was granted.
Okay, thank you. So just a general question. So after what you've heard during the course of the day, has there been anything that's caused you to modify, amend any of the views that you had expressed in your evidence at all?
No, I think it's become quite clear the categorisation around the food, books and items like that. There is probably everyone's got different views on that, and I accept that, but that's the only, I'm very steadfast on the fact that I believe the items within the Nelson store are not complimentary, and I believe it is a convenience store.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Olivia. Is that all your questions, Derek? Laurie, have you got any more questions? Okay, I think that's finished. Nicola, you didn't have any questions? No. Okay, thank you so much, Olivia. And Nicola, I'll ask you to come and give your evidence now. And we are hoping to finish tonight by 10 to 6. If we need to, we can come back tomorrow at 9 and continue the hearing. Otherwise, I'll let you all think about whether you want to provide summarising feedback in writing tomorrow, and we can then look at that on Thursday. So we'll see how we go with the time and make a decision at about 5:45 whether we need to reconvene tomorrow morning at 9. I should have told you to take your coat off ages ago.
Nicola, would you like to swear or swear? Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you're about to give regarding the matters before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Nicola Gowsell. I hold the position of Alcohol Licensing Inspector at Nelson City Council. I've held this position for 2.5 years. My work includes undertaking inquiries into alcohol licence applications and reporting to the District Licensing Committee under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, sections 103 and 141. As Inspector, I act independently when exercising and performing my functions, duties and powers as outlined under section 197 of the Act. Before you today is an off-licence application from LS Travel Retail New Zealand Limited for an off-licence premises located within the Nelson Airport Terminal called the Nelson Store. The Act provides criteria that the DLC must regard to prior to the issue of a licence. The onus is on the applicant to prove that the off-licence application meets the requirements of the Act. I oppose this application under the Act, sections 32, 35 and 36. In my opinion, based on my inquiry, I do not believe that the application before us meets the criteria in the Act to be issued with an off-licence. A summary of my inquiry. 22nd of November 2021, an application for a new off-licence for LS Travel Retail New Zealand Limited was received by NCC. I was forwarded the application shortly after it was submitted and began my inquiry in December 2021. 27th of January 2022, I sent an email to the agent acting on behalf of the applicant, Georgie Robertson of Hospitality Licensing Limited, requesting for further information regarding, in summary, A, recruitment of additional duty managers as they only had one listed in the application, B, whether the applicant's current off-licences are located in international or domestic airports in New Zealand, and if so, what airports they were located in, C, what their plans were for statutory holidays when alcohol cannot be sold but is still stocked in store, D, whether it is intended that single alcohol sales will include craft beer and cider. E, whether alcohol will be sold at room temperature. F, whether 1/3 of the store will be dedicated to giftware. 15th of February 2022, a response was received which covered in summary A, that recruitment of an additional 2 duty managers will commence once there is certainty of the licence. B, the applicant holds an off licence for Discover Dunedin located in Dunedin International Airport. Hill advised that this licence essentially mirrors the Nelson store application. The applicant also sells alcohol through their Alia duty-free stores that are located in the international side of the airport terminal that do not require a licence. C, it is planned that there is to be a sign over alcohol shelves on statutory holidays saying that no alcohol will be sold. D, alcohol will be sold singly and in 4-packs such as found in the craft beer section of supermarkets. E, alcohol will not be chilled if approximately 1/3 of the store is to be giftware with alcohol space allocated to 3 wall bays. 1st of March 2022, I visited the Nelson store and introduced myself to the store manager, Monica Zebranova. I advised her that I was there to take photos in relation to the off-licence application. Following my visit to the premises, I spoke with Hill and advised for further information regarding the Discover Dunedin store. I was interested in determining whether the application was a test case at a local level or whether a similar store had been awarded a Section 35 off licence. 14th of March 2022, Hill confirmed in an email that the 2 stores were quite different and that convenience items, including snack foods, soft drinks, confectionery, lotto tickets, tobacco items, newspapers and magazines were not stocked at Discover Dunedin. Hill advised that a relay store was situated next door to Discover Dunedin that stocked these items. She also provided photos of the Discover Dunedin store. Through obtaining this information, it became apparent that the 2 stores did not mirror each other. It was also confirmed at my visit that less than 1/3 of the store was currently dedicated to giftware. Hill advised in the email dated 14th of March 2022 that there are plans to increase the giftware stock to include cured meats, cheeses and gourmet beverages, which would be stored in a single door fridge. Moana Road products that are primarily a gift shop range are also likely to be offered. March 2022, I researched domestic airport websites, Wellington, Christchurch and Auckland, to ascertain whether any stores selling similar items included snack foods, soft drinks, confectionery, lotto tickets, tobacco items, newspapers and magazines, whether they held an off licence. None appeared to do so. 5th of March 2022, I contacted Hill and advised her that the agencies and myself were looking to oppose the application as we did not believe the application complied with requirements under the Act to enable a complementary sales off licence. I also informed her that both the agencies and I shared discussions around a suggestion that if a separate shop could be constructed into the existing footprint, then possibly they could have a specific giftware store that includes a complementary sales off licence. This was considered as a potential way of enabling the gift shop and convenience items to be sold from different locations. This would involve each area having separate tills and entrances. The conversation finished with Miss Robertson offering to take the suggestion back to the applicant and get back to me with their response. 22nd of May 2022, Hill sent an email advising that the applicant wished to proceed with the application and layout of the premises as lodged. 14th September 2022, I contacted CPR Airshop that is located at the Blenheim Airport, as it heard that they held an off licence for complementary sales for their giftware shop, along with an on licence for a cafe beside it. I spoke to the shop assistant about the products they stocked in their off licence. She advised that items included giftware such as handbags and clothing, as well as newspapers, magazines and books. She confirmed that it did not sell lotto tickets, tobacco and snack foods, such as mainstream chocolate bars, fizzy drinks and potato chips. The off-licence sits in a separate room with the door open from the on-licence. The off-licence is limited to the sale of wine only. As mentioned in my report and through my inquiry into the application, I consider the Nelson store to be a convenience store through the visual appearance that is conveyed to the public and the wide range of convenience items that the premises supplies. It offers a one-stop shop approach to customers, providing snack foods, soft drinks, confectionery, lotto tickets, tobacco, tech supplies, books, magazines, and giftware. Many of these products are generally regarded as convenience store items. Under Section 36C of the Act, no off-licence for a convenience store can be issued. As referred to in my report, I see this as a test case at a local level. To my knowledge, there is no other domestic airport terminal in New Zealand that has a store holding an off-licence selling the range of products currently offered at the Nelson store. The application does not appear to fit within the criteria of the Act, and therefore a licence should be declined. Thank you.
I just re-say that. Is there anything else you'd like to add, having heard the proceedings of today?
No.
Just happy to answer questions?
Happy to answer questions.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Nick.
Great. Thank you, Kate. And thanks.
Oh, I'm just going to check Derek and Laurie.
Oh, okay. So
You're okay?
Just the question that came up, and I had noted it earlier about the McCashin's bar. Is it operating? Do you know? No. Do you have any knowledge of that?
When I last visited the store, when we did the renewal, it wasn't operating, and that was last year. It was 2021. It wasn't operating, but I don't know. I haven't really focused on that section when I've been here.
So if it doesn't operate, how long does that license still say valid? Do they have to keep operating to keep it valid?
As far as I can recall, I think the license that's also it sits with the Wayfarer Cafe, and so they can open that bar if there is a need, but they haven't had a need because of COVID, so they've just stuck with the cafe.
I have a quick question as well. And I'm raising it with you because it's in your evidence. You mentioned it was confirmed on my visit that less than a third of the store was currently dedicated to giftware. HLL advised in an email on the 14th of March that there are plans to increase the giftware stock to include cured meats, cheeses, gourmet beverages, Moana Road products, and that kind of thing. Do you think that perhaps if that had happened already, do you think there's a requirement to have the alcohol license for those items to become part of that store, or do you think that that could be happening already if the store image was wanting to change to be more of a giftware store?
Are you saying that if they had the 1/3 of giftware stock in there, which didn't appear to be there when I was there in March, would I have formed a different view?
Would you have formed a different view about the convenience aspect, or if they'd got rid of the lotto tickets in the newspaper? Would you have formed a different view about whether they fitted the criteria of being a convenience store if the contents of the store was
even
different?
if it had 1/3 of giftware? If that was 1/3 when I went there, I would still consider it a convenience store.
Okay, because of the lotto tickets, tobacco and snack foods.
That's correct.
Okay, so even though Blenheim in your mind is not a convenience store, even though it sells newspapers, magazines and books, because it doesn't sell lotto tickets, tobacco, snack foods, chocolate bars, fizzy drinks and potato chips.
From the phone call I had with the shop assistant, she said that it did not sell tobacco, newspapers and snack foods. I haven't visited the store.
Okay.
I haven't seen. I've only seen those photos and I know they're blurred, but that's all I could get hold of.
I guess 80. Maybe they're predominantly selling. Okay, I wonder what they have an off license in line with an on license. So they're a cafe. They have both. And their I note that their off license is limited to the sale of wine only. I'm just curious what application they made. Section 35, you think, as well? Okay. All right. Nick.
Thanks, Kate. I'd like to just start things with your report.
Okay,
So that's not written. It's from page 54.
yes, I have that here.
And so this is your report on the 8th of June 2022.
That's correct.
And the application was submitted on the 21st of November.
Mhm.
So this is your considered report after reviewing all the material since 2021 and then writing the report on 8th of June 2022.
Yes,
What is the nature of the business can generally be described as an airport convenience store? Correct.
yes,
And you still maintain that view.
yes.
And so those words, airport convenience store, can you help me? Do they appear in the application themselves, or in the application documents itself?
I think it may have, I do recall seeing somewhere where the applicant has, or the agent has said that it is not an airport convenience store.
Okay, I just wanted to understand, because your report, these are your words, you use that phrase, airport convenience store. That's your words.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess contrasting that, for example, with if you were to receive a copy of the lease from National Grid 28.
Yes, I'm on page 28.
You see here down the bottom.
Yes,
So you haven't used those words in your describing in your report, have you? Where it says sale of print, books, magazines, newspapers in digital format, sale of non-perishable and prepackaged confectionery, gourmet foods and beverages, beer and tobacco, sale of stationery and travel accessories, toys, gifts, souvenirs, electronics, medical health and beauty, sunglasses under $50, apparel.
no, I haven't used, no, I haven't, no, no.
So retailing a wide range of small items, including books, sweets, magazines, gifts, and souvenirs, often for the convenience of your customers.
No, I did note that it said, it did not say spirits under permitted use as well.
You mean in terms of what alcohol might be sold? And did you make any inquiries?
No, I did. No, my primary focus has been on the fact that it appears to be a convenience store.
Nick, could I ask you to turn your microphone on for Zoom, please?
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Well, then let's just work through then how you've reached that assessment. So I'll just zero right in on Nicola. You still maintain that the store is ineligible for the grant of an off license because it's a convenience store?
That's correct.
You say it's a convenience store, and you also say that the principal business of the store is the sale of food?
That's correct.
And even after everything you've heard today, you still maintain that?
I still believe that.
And you still consider that the sale of alcohol would not be complementary to the goods sold in the store?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to work through just each of those elements,
okay,
if I may, please, just to understand how you've arrived at those. Now, you've heard the discussion that I've had with Olivia about the criteria in terms of the regulations.
Yes.
And so I just want to focus on principal business. So you're familiar with the definition of principal business in the Act?
Yes, I am, and I've got that in my report.
You've got that in your report?
Yes, I have.
Could you just take me there in your report where you refer to that?
Yep. Page 59. The sales figures provided by Hill can be examined as a way of determining the principal business. The term principal is, in this context, can be regarded as the main or predominant, first in rank or first in importance. So if you look under definitions in the Act, under principal business.
Yes, okay, well, let's do that.
Mhm.
Do you have a copy of the Act?
I
here?
don't.
Someone be able to assist the inspector with a copy of the legislation handbook. So in that handbook, Nicola, at page 28, page 28 of the legislation handbook, 2020.
Yep.
So you see principal business there was what you were referring to. Could you just read that to yourself? I'll ask you a question.
Okay, yep.
So the words main or predominant, first in rank or first in important don't appear in that definition, do they?
No.
Okay. So where did you get that from?
I must have got that from, I'm thinking a dictionary or something. Yeah, I'm thinking it might have been from, yeah, sorry, it could have been from a dictionary.
Okay. So then I'm just simply trying to understand your proposition about how you understand this. Plainly, you understand I have a different view. And so I'll put to you for comment then my view. So my view is thinking about principal business being used in section 35. I look at the definition of principal business. You see what that says there?
Yes.
It says, in relation to the business carried on or to be carried on in any premises. See that word premises used?
Yes.
So that could be an off license, couldn't it?
Could be.
Means principal business is ascertained, assessed or calculated by a means for the time being prescribed by regulations made under this Act for the purposes of this definition. So you didn't, by your evidence, you turned to the dictionary, you didn't turn to the regulations.
Yes.
Okay.
What does that mean? Principal business. I mean, it's quite airy-fairy, isn't it?
Well, you'll have to determine that, and I'm happy to give you submissions on that. It's relevant specifically, I would say, that I cross-examine the inspector about her understanding of this, because she is the technical expert on the Act, and in my submission, that's why I want to understand why she's gone to the dictionary and not the regulations at this point of her report.
So can you highlight why you're asking her questions about principal business this is page 25 of the sale and supply of alcohol handbook. How do you land that the principal business is not food on the basis of that definition?
Well, Kate, I'm cross-examining what the statement made by Nicola in her report. The sales figures provided by HLL can be examined as a way of determining the quote principal business. And then the next sentence is the term principal in this context can be regarded as the quote main or predominant, first in rank or first in importance.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so you still stand by that's the correct approach, to go to the dictionary and not the regulations.
There are many ways. Look, as we've discussed today, there seems to be a range of ways that people are interpreting the regulations, and as we've said, you can cut the cloth in a range of ways. And in the regulations, it does cover off around how to determine a grocery, and it is not particularly clear. And so, so there is. So I've referred to the dictionary in this. Yep.
Okay, and look, I won't labour it too much, Nicola, but I'm just going to put some presumptions that I've made to you. You work in the licensing as the licensing inspector, the primary licensing inspector for Nelson City Council. That's correct.
That's correct.
There's a senior licensing inspector at Nelson, is there?
No.
Well, there's two of us that are warranted.
Yes, two of these are warranted. You've held a warrant for how long?
2.5 years.
And your other inspector, can you identify them, please?
Is Brent Edwards.
And he's held a warrant for how long?
I'm not sure.
Would it be more than 2.5 years?
Yes.
Yes, and you've spoken with Brent about this provision?
Yes.
But you don't mention that here in any part of your report?
No.
And you don't call Brent as a witness today?
No.
Okay. And when you say there's no clear guidance, you haven't referred to, say, the the Westlaw sale of alcohol text that Laurie has referred to for guidance?
No.
You haven't sought a legal opinion to help give you guidance?
No.
You haven't spoken to the in-house legal counsel at Nelson City Council for guidance?
No, I've just assessed the application through my own skills and experience.
Okay. I understand. That's just what I'm trying to understand is the basis for why you say that that's the way to assess the store. Okay. Well, let's move on. Then in terms of the alcohol being an appropriate complement to the goods sold, then you speak about your view. There's that the concept of an appropriate complement is an item which, when combined with another item, will enhance or emphasise the qualities of both.
That's correct.
Those are your words?
Yes.
And tell us, where did they come from?
I can't actually recall. It has been a while since I wrote this.
Would it be a dictionary definition, for example?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Okay. It's just that the Olivia in her brief uses the exact same word, so I'm just trying to understand where your view comes from. And that's okay if you don't recall. Over the page of your report on page 60, Nicola, you refer to a decision there.
Yes.
So you've referred to the Warehouse Limited.
That's correct.
So it's plain you've referred to some legal decisions to inform your view.
Yes.
You haven't referred to the decision in Gladding and Glenorchy that we've referred to today in your report. I'm aware that that was awarded under Section 34. Section 34 was certainly relevant. It's very hard to find like for like. Obviously, there's no like for like exact, and the 34 I saw as a deterrent. Okay. Well, could I put this proposition to you? In your view, with you having regard to your experience as a licensing inspector, is the Nelson store similar to the warehouse, the Nelson warehouse store? It sells a wide range of products. You could say similar to the warehouse. Can I ask my question again? In your opinion as an inspector, is the Nelson store similar to the warehouse? It has some similarities. Well, then, shall we look through some of the similarities and differences? Have you had an opportunity to look at the decision in Gladding, Nicola? I haven't. No, you haven't referred to that. Would you like to take a moment to have a look at that and I could ask you some questions about that in terms of these similarities.
I have just rearranged my evening, so I don't have to be anywhere until 7 p.m. now, but it's 20 to 6. So that means I would like to know how much longer other people can stay for.
I need to have some dinner,
You know, to have some dinner, okay?
not staying till 7.
No, so could we go till 6:30? Is that okay with you, Olivia?
Yes, I mean, I would rather stay and finish
And finish?
rather than coming back, but it's also
I'm happy
appreciate
to adjourn for a break and then
If-
come back, but I'm not.
if it suits everybody, the timing wise, and we think we're going to get it there, then
Okay,
I don't think I'll need till 6:30, put it that way. I'd anticipate being done by 6 o'clock
okay, all right, that's helpful, thank you.
with my questions at least.
Can I just ask the question of, you've asked several times already about gladding, and we've got gladding in front of
Yes.
us, and we're a really responsible licensing committee that will look at gladding.
Sure.
So I'm just questioning where you want to try and take gladding, because I think we've addressed it. It's a very different location than the Nelson store, but we'll take account when we're looking through in relation to all of the case laws. I'm just asking you,
Sure.
do we really need to go down that path again? What difference is it going to make? Because you've drawn our attention 3 times now to gladding, and we're well aware of the components of that because we've read the material.
Yes, well, I'm grateful for that indication, Laurie. Thank you. Well, in that case, I mean, the basis of my questions were to test the case as regard the inspector looking at this. What I would say is that under section 197, the inspector's got a statutory duty to independently inquire into these applications separate from the other reporting agencies.
Yep.
So I need to understand why it is that the inspector says that. Look, I also take your strong indication. Gladding's at the forefront of your mind of considering those criteria. I'll take it from you, Nicola. You haven't read gladding. It's plain you haven't referred to it in writing your report.
It's correct.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
And your reason for that was because it's under section 34. That I heard you say that.
Well,
Okay. Well, then let's move on, Nicola. Before I do that, 2 quick questions. One is that you'd accept that the forming of an opinion about a convenience store, that's a matter for the committee. You'd agree with that?
It is a matter for the committee.
And it's solely for the committee. It's not your job, for example, to form an opinion under the statute, is it?
It is my job to file a report.
Yes. So you inquire into and report on an application.
That's correct.
Understand. Right. So then let's move on to consider the section 105 criteria from your report, please. Okay. So there are some aspects where I just need to put to you our client's evidence on this. Page 61 of the agenda bundle, please.
Agenda 61.
61. So this is your report.
Yeah.
So at section 105B, the suitability of the applicant. Yeah. Now you comment, the question of suitability has not been investigated deeply as it seems secondary to the issue of the non-compliance of the licence application itself.
That's correct.
So you haven't asked any questions of the licensee in relation to suitability?
No.
And in cross-examination today, you haven't asked the licensee about any questions of its suitability?
No.
No. Well, then section 105C, you acknowledge the council doesn't have a local alcohol policy, and that's plain. Section 105D, you say comment days and hours proposed to sell issue. Days and hours proposed to sell alcohol, comment, no issue. That's
That's correct.
your statement there. So thinking about the hours that are sought for this store, still no issue.
No.
Okay. So section 105E, you refer to the design and layout of the premises. You identify undesignated.
That's correct.
Are you aware of any other Section 35 stores in New Zealand that are designated as supervised?
No,
Are you aware of any other Section 35 premises in New Zealand that are designated as restricted?
no,
In fact, are you aware of any grocery store premises that are designated as restricted
no,
or designated as supervised?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. So you say that no measures are proposed to limit exposure to general shoppers and minors. In your report, do you still stand by that?
Well, from what I can recall, there was nothing in the application that that covered that.
Okay, you raised with the apologies. You raised with the applicant the possibility of confining alcohol to a separate area, and you're aware of the restriction of a shop within a shop?
That's correct.
So that would be unlawful to do that.
If you put up a wall in between and had a separate entrance and a separate till and
A separate shop.
it would basically be a separate shop.
Be a separate shop, wouldn't it? But it would be within the footprint of the store.
That's correct, but it could still look like a separate shop.
And that would be, but it would be prohibited to do that under the Act.
If it had a separate till and a separate entrance, if it looked like a separate shop, had the appearance of a separate shop, then I think there could, it would be worth exploring further.
Well, in terms of exploring further, you'll accept the applicant's proposed to locate the alcohol in a single area?
Yes.
And you'll be aware that the restrictions, such as applying to grocery stores and supermarkets, don't automatically apply to Section 35 licences?
Yes.
And you've heard about the other controls, including CCTV in place?
Yes.
And those are reasonable steps from this licensee?
Yes.
And you'd accept, though, that locating it in an area at the back of the store could, in fact, limit exposure to minors?
Yes, it would. It would.
Okay. Then in terms of Section 105F and G, I think we've dealt with that. So Section 105H and I, amenity and good order, you say airport security is presumably a high priority and one which could be compromised by any unsupervised consumption of alcohol. Based on what you've heard today, do you still have concerns about that?
No.
Okay. Section 105J, you say adequate system, staff and training to comply. Comment, this has not been adequately demonstrated. That's your statement?
We've received a lot more information in the last since filing this report. I don't have concerns around the staff, the systems and staffing and training.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicola. The final question that I had was just, do you accept that the airport is a security controlled environment?
Yes.
And would you accept that in terms of the sale and supply of alcohol fees regulations, that this is a low risk application?
It probably would be weighted as a low risk following what's described in the Act.
Okay. And so then the last comment then I really just wanted to put to you, Nicola, this is what the departmental report for the Justice and Electoral Committee said about the Section 35 exception. They described it we'd consider the exception for complementary goods serves an important purpose of facilitating low-risk specialist alcohol sales, which cannot be appropriately covered by any other off-licence category. Do you think that's a reasonable statement about section 35?
Can you please repeat that?
So that the department report for the Justice and Electoral Committee accompanying the Alcohol Reform Bill said that they consider, or we consider, the exception for complementary goods serves an important purpose of facilitating low-risk specialist alcohol sales, which cannot be appropriately covered by any other off-licence category. Would you accept that's a reasonable comment in relation to section 35?
Yes.
And going further then, would you accept that this applicant is trying to facilitate low-risk specialist alcohol sales at the Nelson store?
Spirits are generally considered low risk, and to my knowledge, the only section 35 off licenses that we have in Nelson are for gift basket businesses that they operate remotely.
And just to pick up on that, there's no wording in section 35 that says that it says those licenses could only be granted to gift basket businesses.
No, there isn't.
Okay. I didn't have any further questions. Thank you.
Nicola, can I just ask a question? There's been a bit of a comment this afternoon around the use of looking at what terms mean. Are you aware that kind of right through the legislation where case law refers to different things, that the legislation often defaults to the dictionary meaning for particular words in the Act? Have you?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Nicola, I've got a subsequent question, and I'm sorry, I can't find if it's in your, I read it, but I've got my glasses on. So the Blenheim store, I can't find the page now, the Blenheim store has an off license just for wine.
It's correct.
So it's not been categorised as a convenience store.
No.
What section was that off license approach?
Section 35.
Section 35, okay. A standalone, okay. And your mind that Blenheim store is not a convenience store, even though it sells books and newspapers. Well, its license was approved, so therefore it can't be a convenience store.
That's right. I don't believe it sells. I mean, I don't believe it sells newspapers.
It sells book. Okay, just books and magazines.
That was just through word. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
I understand.
It was highlighted by Nick that the terms of the license there was 3 categories. Someone might be able to help me find that page. So there were 3 categories. There was newspapers, books. Am I looking on the wrong page? No.
83.
Was that 83? Goodness me. No, the actual license from the airport, the lease. Can someone point me to the page of the lease? Pardon? 27. Oh, agreement to sublease. Here, look, here I am. Next page. So the permitted use is sale of print, books, magazines, newspapers, and digital format. So it could be argued that that's one of their major items of sale. Then sale of non-perishable and pre-packaged confectionery, gourmet foods and beverages, beer, wine and tobacco. And you've noted that it doesn't have spirits in there. So that could be a second area of this major sales. And then the sale of stationery, travel accessories, toys, gifts, souvenirs, electronics, cosmetics, health beauty aids, sunglasses, apparel and commission items. I noticed lotto tickets isn't anywhere in that list. Is lotto tickets a commission item? Is a commission item. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So when you read that list, do you see that as a convenience store list?
It does come across to me as a list of convenience, items.
So travel essentials plus convenience items.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. But you could also concur that perhaps food wasn't the primary intention of this store. Because we've heard quite clearly that food is regarded as the primary intention of the store from Nelson Marlborough Health and the police and yourself. But I would say that books is 20%. So I understand that you've added up 3 categories, but equally we could add up 3 categories and say, well, that's also a primary reason for the store's existence. So I guess the question is it more like Whitcoulls or is it more like a convenience store which sells primarily convenient foods? And it's probably a mixture of both. Would you concur?
In my view, it appears to be a mixture of both.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any questions from Olivia or Alexandra for Nicola?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. If that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much, Nicola. Just going back to Nick's point about how you formed a definition of principal business, are you aware of this document, which is the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Regulations 2013?
Yes.
And are you aware of section 6 where it states matters relating to grocery stores and then ascertaining the principal business?
Yes.
Follows from that. And would it be correct to say that you didn't use this because you looked to the heading which said matters relating to grocery stores and therefore thought that it was not the appropriate regulation to use?
Yes.
And would it be correct that you then looked to a dictionary definition as has been indicated by Laurie, because that's commonly what the practice is in other legislative settings when a definition is not readily available?
That is correct.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to also go back to the point that was made about how you formed a view of the store. You will be familiar in the agenda, page 26, where the store layout is presented, and also page 83 that we've referred to several times with the categories of items available. When you were forming the opinion that this was a shop of a kind commonly thought of as a convenience store, did you consult the store plan and the list of items for sale that was?
Yes, I did.
And those led you to informed your opinion alongside your site visit?
That's correct.
Great, thank you very much. I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. And Olivia, you didn't have any questions? Laurie and Derek, any further questions? Nick, you're finished? Okay, thank you so much, Nicola.
Thank you.
Well done, everyone. I know it's been a long day. Are we able to close now and you will send through your summaries, or would you like to make any concluding remarks now? Should we have a round, a quick round? Ideally a short round?
Certainly, well, it depends on where your committee wants to sit. Tonight or tomorrow or when. I'd certainly like the opportunity to give some submissions to you orally.
Okay.
I feel their written submissions not provide enough interaction to help answer any queries in your mind.
Okay.
But yeah, conscious of everyone's commitments at time.
So in that case, we will adjourn and we'll come back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Can you all raise your hands if you can come at 9 in the morning?
This is to provide
Laurie, Michelle, yeah.
We need to.
The relative agencies have prepared a joint closing submission.
Mhm.
So we would like some time to confer and to, because it is a joint agency submission, make sure that we're all able to provide input to that, which I will present on our behalf. So is it possible to have it slightly later in the morning so that we have time to?
Okay,
meet?
shall we make it 11?
Yeah, that would be great.
11 a.m., which gives you all a couple of hours in the morning, and we'll make it 11. And then do you think it's going to take more than 2 hours? Is everyone free till 1? I mean,
Yes, that's fine for me. Thank you.
ideally we'll be finishing at 1. I have something at 4.
We're not staying till then.
So,
I have a hard deadline that I would have to leave here by about 1:30 anyhow, so.
okay, would you like it to start at 10:30? Could someone give me a starting time?
11 is fine.
11 is good.
I don't think we would need more
How
than.
long are you thinking that you'll need?
For my presentation, I'd say 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay, we'll double that.
Because will it be applicant first and then us?
I've just learned over the years, nothing is what we think it's going to take. So no offence to you, Nick. So let's allow an hour for Nick, an hour for you. Hopefully we're finished by 1.
Yeah.
And we won't be asking, we should be finished. I feel like I've finished with my questions, I hope, but some questions might arise at 3 a.m. in the morning. As they
Olivia
do.
asked the question, who was going to go first, where the agencies all was.
Is there an order we should be looking at, Michelle?
No.
Who would like to go first?
I'm very relaxed, I can do it. Either the reporting agencies to read first and I then close after that, or I go, the reporting agencies go, then I have a very short reply to that.
Okay.
Anything that came up, I can dealt with. No preference.
Okay, I have to give the applicant the right of reply once all parties have concluded if necessary. So, all right, so we will hear from Nick for your 30 to 40 minutes. Then we'll have up to an hour. So we'll go Nick, then the agencies, then back to Nick for his conclusions, and hopefully that will be as brief and succinct as possible. But it is okay if it's not, because we have to allow everyone the time they need to take to feel like they've been heard. I have 2 outstanding questions or requests. Olivia, could you please send through your photos of the relay store in Wellington?
Yes. Am I sending it through to? Yes, I can do that.
And I am still curious how Google defines convenience stores. So if someone can help me figure that one out, then that would be very, very helpful. Google says it. Google's right.
We're adjourning the meeting now, and
It's now that I.
Oh, okay. Yes, if you want to table.
would you want to rejoin us tomorrow? Should we set up another link for you?
Yes, if you could, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Very good, we'll send that through.
And if Nikki wants to join via Zoom, she's welcome to as well.
Yes, I'll let her know. Thank you very much.